The ancient sun god Saturn had connections with the underworld, as is evident from the position of his Saturnalia festival in December, a month which is strictly reserved for sun gods of solar functions. It takes planet Saturn 28 to 30 years to complete its orbit of the zodiac, which places the planet Saturn in the sign of Capricorn for roughly 3 years, every 29 years, making it impossible to have an annual celebration of Saturnalia. In fact, the only way the Saturnalia celebration can be accounted for is if Saturn were originally revered as the sun, the same sun that we know and adore today. Saturn was the god of agriculture, sowing and harvest. These are 3 aspects that point directly to the sun and have no correlation with a planet. If you think it not so, I must ask, what does a dimly lit point of light in the night sky, on a 30-year orbit have to do with these things of solar alliance? Nothing. The fact is, if you do your homework, you will come to learn that most all the names for the planets were once names of sun gods. Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune were all sun gods, either for the different times of the day or assigned to the months and seasons of the solar year. Even the recently discovered Pluto was a sun god. A majority of scholars agree that Saturn must at some time have been a chthonic deity, somehow connected with agriculture, and more specifically with the corn harvest. According to some of them, his chthonic nature involved more gloomy aspects as well, connections with death and the underworld. Chthonic literally means subterranean, concerning, belonging to, or inhabiting the underworld. Saturn, whose exaltation is found in Libra, fall, rebelled and seized the kingdom, and Saturn himself was afterwards cast down into Capricorn, winter, by his own son Jupiter, summer. Saturn means hidden, because times and seasons are hidden. The Phoenician name of Hercules corresponds sufficiently with the Latin name of Saturnus. Both Hercules and Saturn were types of the winter sun. When this luminary hides himself, as it were, for the greater number of hours out of the 24, it is not surprising that he should be called Saturn, for this word evidently comes from the Hebrew satyr, latuit, to hide, conceal, to be hidden, lie hid. This is why Saturn and Kronos were always depicted as cowled or hooded. It is because they were originally conceived as the sun, the hidden or black sun below the earth. There were 2 special names of Saturn, the earth god and god of Sheol, or Hades. Hell, the sun, becomes Hell, Pluto. Or Zel, the sun, Sel, Sol, becomes Sheol, Hades. According to the pagan theology, the name of the supreme god of Hell, or monarch of Hades, was Pluto. The dominion of these regions fell to his lot when the world was divided between the 3 sons of Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto. Pluto is described by the poets as riding in a chariot of ebony, drawn by 4 black horses. Horses are consecrated to the sun. On this old Roman coin, Saturn is also depicted with 4 horses. He can be nothing but the sun. So Raya, for setting sun, is identical with Surya, of the Hindus, whence came Syria, the west, and even our word sorrow, while Sol comes from Sheol. The ruler of the realm of shadows is not a malevolent being. Osiris, Hades or Pluto, all originally represented the sun in its absence, and none of them in any way corresponds to the medieval or modern notion of the devil. The sun, rising out of the ocean and again sinking into it, became Poseidon, Neptune, and the invisible sun that through the night tarries in the underworld became god of the world of shades, Pluto, and so with other phenomena, of the sun. The triad, Jove, Pluto and Neptune, are parts, or sons of Saturn. For the sun is both water god and god of the 2 regions, heaven and hell. Yama, the Indian equivalent of Pluto or Hades, the god of death, symbolized the sun at the winter solstice. Pluto and many other gods were originally nothing but the sun. Jupiter, Ammon, Neptune, and Pluto are in reality no more than the symbol of one solar year, diversified according to particular circumstances. In the Hebrew and Greek scripture, Sheol, Hades, Tartarus, and Gehenna, indifferently rendered hell by our translators, it would appear that, in their day, The word hell had not acquired, so exclusively as at present, the meaning of world of future misery. The Hebrew word Sheol signifies a cavity, a hollow subterranean place, and is used to designate the grave, the underworld, the region of the spirits of the dead. Sheol is said to mean the underworld, not the place of torment, as our English word hell does in the Creed. Sheol never necessarily means a place of torment. It is very questionable whether it ever does. On the other hand, it frequently has a bad sense, describes something from which the living shrink from. Sheol was primarily a cosmological conception, and had nothing to do with the grave as the abode of departed spirits, but the Babylonians were unable to keep the two ideas apart. Sheol, usually translated hell or its equivalent in the Bible, is the underworld or subterranean cave. Sheol, then, is the earth in winter, when the sun appears among the southern constellations. This is the true meaning of Sheol, which corresponds to the Hades of the Greeks. Hades is an intermediate state between death and resurrection, equals between death and life. It is the earth's sleep. Sheol includes limbo, or the border of hell farthest from the state of bliss, equals summer, where all of earth who have reaped the fruits. The Septuagint equivalent for Sheol is Hades, a word which occurs in the New Testament 11 times, and in 10 of these is rendered hell, the sole exception being 1 Corinthians 15:55. Again, hell is used as the rendering for Gehenna, 12 times. Originally, as in the Old Testament, usage of the latter word simply signified the valley of Hinnom, near the city, which had been defiled by abominations of human sacrifice in the Moloch worship of Ahaz and Manasseh. The Old Phoenician and general Semitic chief deity, Bel-Saturn, assumes the character of Moloch. The Carthaginian, Libyan and Greek Dionysus is this same fire god Saturn Moloch. In Babylon the sun god Bel was worshipped as the fire god Moloch. Moloch was the sun. In Hebrew, Kab means to die, to perish, to become extinct. Kibo means to descend to Hades. Israel, a name of Saturn, goes down in that direction. Keb is Saturn. Kronos was mourned as the winter sun. Keb is Saturn Moloch Kronos. At the summer solstice Tammuz descends into the underworld. The month in question bears his name. His mother, Ishtar, or his sister, both in fact identical, descend to bring him back. The descent signifies the death of natural life, the cessation of generation. At the winter solstice he ascends to bring new life. Nergal has characteristics of the underworld, which is also named after his place of worship, Cutha. Therefore only the unseen, that is, the underlying south point, belongs to him. Nergal Saturn is explicitly made synonymous with the sun by the Babylonians. Lubat Lagash, Saturn equals star of the sun. An astronomical text says, on the 18th of Tammuz Nergal descends into the underworld, and on the 28th of Kislev, December, he ascends again. Shamash and Nergal are one. Eratosthenes, Simplicius, and Diodorus, attest the same. The sun is represented as the underworld divinity because in his light the stars disappear and perish. Lubat Lagash, the term star of the sun, is taken in its strictest sense, and refers to the sun named as Saturn, not two separate luminaries. Osiris descends into the underworld of the dead. Osiris became the judge of souls. Plutarch mentions the return of Osiris from Hades, after he had been enclosed for a long season in an ark in a state of death. The Sabaean sun, Mithra, Heracles, was held to descend to the place of departed spirits, Hades. The Apocalypse 12:7 and 11 connects him with the sign, Aries. The little mysteries were celebrated to the departing sun, whose shortest day is December 22nd. He rises from darkness and death December 25th, light having vanquished darkness. Revelation 20:3-10 refers to this conflict. The Lamb of Aries is slain. Revelation 5:6, Heracles rises from the dead December 25th. Dionysus rises from Hades to heaven. Likewise Jesus the Son descends into hell, Hades. in the context of Christian theology, the harrowing of hell, Latin, descensus Christi ad inferos, the descent of Christ into hell, is the Old English and Middle English term for the triumphant descent of Christ into hell, or Hades, between the time of his crucifixion and his resurrection, when he brought salvation to all of the righteous who had died since the beginning of the world, excluding the damned. After his death, the soul of Jesus was supposed to have descended into the realm of the dead, which the Apostles' Creed calls hell in the Old English usage. The realm into which Jesus descended is called Sheol or limbo, by some Christian theologians, to distinguish it from the hell of the damned. The harrowing of hell is referred to in the Apostles' Creed and the Athanasian Creed, which states that Jesus Christ descended into hell. Christ having descended to the underworld is alluded to in the New Testament in 1 Peter 3:19-20, which speaks of Jesus preaching to the imprisoned spirits. The Catholic Catechism interprets Ephesians 4:9, which states that Christ descended into the lower parts of the earth, as also supporting this interpretation. Astronomical calculations are made from that point of intersection of the equator and ecliptic, which is the position of the Sun in the heavens on the 21st of March, and which is known as the first point of Aries. The time occupied between the periods when the Earth is parallel to its own axis, that is the time occupied in the precession of the equinoxes, the great year, is computed at 25,868 years. Our forefathers therefore found by observation that their calculations were out by a little more than a day and a quarter in each year. They took their departure as regards for time from the beginning of the precessional year, when by computing backwards they found that the Sun entered the first point of Aries about the 21st of our March. This day they considered the anniversary of the birth of the Sun, the Creator, the life-giver, to accomplish which birth it was necessary that he should have first died. They fixed the date of his death as after the 22nd or 25th of December, or in the time of the winter solstice, and figuratively spoke of the intercalary time as of a period when the Sun wandered in Sheol, the land of shadows, hell, as early Christian divines have rendered it. About the 23rd of March, at the vernal equinox, when all nature rejoices with returning spring, they celebrated the birth with annual rejoicing in allegorical ceremonies. To these two festivals we owe the myths of the births, deaths, descents into Sheol and resurrections of all the saviors of mankind. Osiris, or Muzd, Mithra, Adonis, Brahma, Krishna, Hercules, Buddha, Christ, of every one of whom the same story has been told, with but the trifling variations in detail induced by the difference of locality. Among the Egyptians, the Chaldeans, Assyrians, and the populations generally of Western Asia, it is, beyond all doubt, that the abode of the dead was conceived as the region of the nocturnal sun, that is to say the lower hemisphere of heaven, through which the sun passes between sunset and sunrise. The entrance to this world of darkness and death was thought to be in the west, for the reason that this was the region of the sun's descent at evening into the underworld. It is important to note, also, that the Assyrian Eribu is the original of the Greek Erebus, the world of darkness, situated in the west, where the sun sets, the conceived entrance into Hades. Thus, it is perfectly apparent, from this data, not only that the conceived location of Hades was in the nocturnal heavens, but that this location had been determined by the nocturnal course of the sun, whose setting in the west was regarded as its descent into the abode of the dead. But from whence arose this circle of ideas, so singular, yet so natural, when all the facts are considered? It arose from the fact that the solar orb had been taken as a type of man, its course as a symbol of human existence. It is impossible that these notions could have taken their rise from any other source than this solar typology. As the representative of man, the descent of the sun in the west into the nocturnal heavens symbolized the death of man, and his descent into Hades. Thus, the location of Hades was fixed in the region of the nocturnal sun, but the region of the winter sun is also the lower hemisphere of heaven, although, in a sense, a little different from the nocturnal heavens. The solar orb, in fact, was supposed to descend into the kingdom of darkness, cold and death. During the winter season, the same as during the night. Thus, the location of Hades, as conceived by the ancients, alternated between the extreme west, where the sun sets at night, and the extreme south, whither it descends during the winter months. In the one case the location of the abode of death was determined by the daily course of the sun, and in the other by its annual courses. It was the annual sun that descended into the extreme south during midwinter. We see, thus, how this solar symbolism had determined the location of the abode of the dead, the sun being regarded as a type of man, and especially of the first man, the representative of the whole following race. He was supposed to pass through the same experience. The sun was conceived to die and descend into Hades, when it disappeared from the western horizon, and this fixed the location of Hades in the region of the nocturnal sun. It is impossible to give any other explanation of the known facts. Furthermore, many sun gods are born in caves, for example, Krishna of India, for it is recorded in the sacred books of India that Krishna was born of the Virgin Devaki, that his nativity was heralded by a star, and that, though of royal lineage, he was born in a cave. Abraham was born in a cave and remained hidden there for 10 years, suckled by a deer. Dionysus was also born in a cave, deep in the womb of Mother Earth. Bacchus, who was the son of God by the Virgin Semele, is said to have been born in a cave, or placed in one shortly after his birth. Apollo, son of the almighty Zeus, was born in a cave at early dawn. Attis, the god of the Phrygians, was born in a cave or grotto. The birthday of Mithra, the Invincible One, was celebrated as an ancient festival on the 25th of December, the day of the solstice, our Christmas day. He was born in a cave or from a rock, and wherever Mithra was worshipped, the cave was consecrated to him. In the Gospel of James, the child Jesus was born in a cave below a cavern in which there was never any light to bring forth the light of the world. And on the third day she, Mary, went out of the cave, and entering a stable, put her child in a manger. The cave of Mithras was that of the son born in the winter solstice, when this occurred in the sign of the sea-goat. Abadu, the Akkadian name of the 10th month, answering roughly to December, the month of Capricorn, was the birthplace of the Mithraic Messiah from 2410 to 255 BC. And this was continued as the cave or birthplace of the Christ after it ceased to be applicable to the solar god. According to the early Christian writers Justin Martyr and Origen, Jesus was born in a cave, and lived with his mother in a grotto. All saviors are said to be born of a virgin because as the birth takes place in the sign of Capricorn, called the stable, Virgo is the zodiacal sign which is rising on the eastern hemisphere, which is so frequently called the pit, cave or stable. That this incident is universal and not exclusively connected with the story of Jesus is shown by the fact that more than 20 previous saviors of mankind, in other races and ages, are all represented as being born of a virgin in a stable, crypt or cave, and in the presence of domestic animals, the bull, goat, sheep, ass, etc.